So we were just shooting a breeze, and as things tend to do when either Zach or myself are involved in a conversation, it turned to music. He asked me what my favorite band was, and I said Oingo Boingo, man. And the look on Zach's face was like it's like the moment the little girl in the bumblebee costume tap dances her way into the field and finds all the other weirdos, you know?
Hey, everybody, I'm Zach, your host for the ZHZ Podcast. As you know, we are all about the do-it-yourself artist and a hub for all things music. This episode, I wanted to introduce the co-host and future co-host of future episodes. My God.
Mine too.
My dear friend, musician, confidant. I'll let him fill you in on his history, but I've known this guy since 1991 when we met at Lagoon, which was our first job, or at least my first job. And we started talking about music, and I was trying to get a band together. And I remember asking him what instrument he played, and he said he played trumpet. And it wasn't what I was kind of trying to get together at the time. I was thinking like a drummer and a guitarist or whatever, but I just kind of thought about it for a second, like, huh. And knowing that my favorite band, and we can share a story about it, but is Oingo Boingo, they had a killer brass section, and we kind of hit it off ever since. I'll let him fill in that story, but without further ado, let me welcome Matt Allen. Matt,
Thank you,
how
Z.
are you?
I'm great, man. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to get this project rolling.
Yes.
You know, it's just a natural evolution of Zach Davis creating creativity. So, you know, we, like Zach said, Zach and I have been making music together for 33 years this summer. We were hustling for Midway games at Lagoon.
That's right.
Our local amusement park here in the great state of Utah. And one
only
afternoon, it was just really slow. Zach was working the basketball game. Next door to that, I was working the speedball game with clocking your baseball throws. And we would just hustle for each other's games. We'd each have a basketball in one hand and a baseball in the other. Hey, you want to try basketball? Nope. Oh, well, how about speedball? And then, you know, we'd wait 15 minutes for the next person to walk by. So we were just shooting a breeze, and as things tend to do when either Zach or myself are involved in a conversation, it turned to music. He asked me what my favorite band was, and I said Oingo Boingo, man. And the look on Zach's face was like it's like the moment the little girl in the bumblebee costume tap dances her way into the field and finds all the other weirdos, you know? It's
Like,
because so we talked Boingo, we talked and like he said, he mentioned he wanted to start a band, and my playing trumpet, it was just kind of in the cards.
have you know that at the end of that season, they had this like farewell party for the employees, and we actually performed our first gig.
Right. Our first gig ever was at the end of season employee party in a big picnic pavilion.
Davis Pavilion, actually.
The Davis Pavilion.
That is right.
That's right.
Don't forget.
Crazy, but
It's awesome. Those good times.
But I remember, you know, and I remember the first rehearsal that I was invited to come and kind of try out for the band was, you know, Zach and Josh Jensen and Jesse Deller.
Jesse Deller. Yeah.
And
I think it was Jason McDonough.
Jason McDonough was there. And I don't think Greg Griffith was at that first practice.
No, I think it was just the four of us there.
But
and
I walked in with my a drum machine.
Yep.
And a little keyboard with miniature keys. With
That's
a couple of keys missing, so you'd have to, like, if you were going to play in a certain key, you'd pop the black key off of here and pop it in down here so that you could play it.
My Casio tone.
And and every automated drum beat started.
That's right. It had the 4
And,
count
Yeah,
wood block count.
it's emblazoned in my brain
in
because
mine
I
too,
heard
man.
that so many times. It just meant that a Zach song was coming. So I walked in and they were playing a song that Zach had written called "You Were Right." Bubblegum pop
Yep.
love
Synth
song, man.
pop bubblegum.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm listening to it, and it instantly in my head, a harmony for the chorus just pops in, and so I tell Zach, I'm like, "No, okay, play the song again." And this time, I jumped in on the chorus and harmonized with Zach, and before I'd ever even pulled the trumpet out of the case, I was in.
Yeah. Well, you did such a great job at harmonizing. It was like, it's to this day, and it's 30 years later, I struggle with the whole idea of harmonizing. I should probably like do a deep dive, but it always came kind of natural to you, and I was like, yeah, this is it. This is
Right. I've never been much of a songwriter. I'm not. I struggle with it. Everything I've ever written sounds bad. So
I'm trying to remember if I've heard anything that you've actually like written on your own. You may have, but I don't recall really. Usually,
no,
you're just
because there's
kind
never
of like, what do you got?
anything worth. There's never anything worth sharing.
But you do such a good job,
right?
Like bouncing off of my ideas.
You come up with the initial ideas. I can write horn lines all day long. I hear horn lines in my head all the time, and harmonies and harmonies for the horn line and harmony. That's just kind of how my brain works.
Yeah. Well, and then Deap Blue went on to, we got Dave Andrews to play drums for a while, and then you were kind of just like a one brass section. Like
it wasn't a horn section. We really didn't even think of it in terms of a horn section. It was a trumpet. It was just an additional instrument.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, the way Deap Blue used the trumpet, it was a lot more like a lead synth line.
Yep. It was a lot of melody. It wasn't. We didn't do a lot of. Yeah, it was just like pretty cool.
So, yeah,
it was great, man. Those were some pretty good shows. Well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about where you're from, where you went to school, maybe, or how you got into doing trumpet or in music in general.
I took piano lessons when I was from about the time I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. I took piano lessons. I didn't like it. I wasn't very good. I just didn't want to put in the work I didn't like practicing. It was a chore.
Yeah, exactly. It's a shame too, because
I lived in Southern California for a couple of years in the early 80s, from about 82 to 84, and I took piano from a girl that was in our church, and she was like 18, 19, really just like blonde Southern California babe. So I was into taking piano at that point.
Right, but then as soon as you moved, it's like this old lady. You're like, yeah, no.
But they
got a
moved,
mustache,
that family moved to like Phoenix or something like that. But then fifth grade, they were saying, all right, school band, you can come and you can, you try out. And I tried out on the trumpet because I wanted to be able to play the 20th century Fox theme, that fanfare.
Yeah.
Because that's how Star Wars started.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
that's great. That's the first song I ever learned was a Star Wars song. The Star Wars theme song. Yeah.
Nerd.
I know.
But so I started playing trumpet in fifth grade, and I was good at it. Like I picked it up really quick. I started playing, so like elementary school, fifth and sixth grade, I was one of the few kids in the band that carried the band so that the parents in the audience could recognize what song was being played.
So you were up front.
Right, well, yeah. So anytime you're dealing with young kids like that, there's a couple of kids that'll be able to do it. And it's so the rest is just noise and a couple of players that kind of are able to carry the melody and so everybody can say, oh yeah, this is
Right.
old
No,
MacDonald
I know
had a
all
farm.
about that. Having kids played instruments growing up.
But then, going into junior high and played trumpet through junior high, except for 8th grade, we had a shortage of low brass instruments. So for 1 year in 8th grade, I played the baritone.
Oh, cool.
Um,
And then you carried that into high school, or did you stop playing in high school?
So high school, I was right back on the trumpet. And then from freshman year on, I was in the jazz band, which was kind of a big deal. Not very many freshmen made the jazz band. And then, so 9th grade, I was in the jazz band, 10th grade jazz band. My 10th grade year, we had a pair of trumpet players that were ahead of me that were just fantastic. One by the name of Andrew Mouton, and he was just such a gifted horn player. And then Ron Witt was second to him. And Ron wasn't nearly as like power lead trumpet as Andrew was, but Ron was just a very, he was just grace, finesse, just a much more polished sound, and a fantastic player. And my sophomore year, Andrew had the credit, so he graduated early and pieced out because they were both they were both seniors, but he had credits. He bounced early, leaving Ron, and then I scooted up into the number 2 spot, and then Ron graduated. So starting my junior year, I was number 1, and
lead trumpet.
Lead trumpet. Junior and senior year, I was lead trumpet, jazz band.
Nice.
A wind ensemble,
I didn't know that.
all of it. And then I was lead trumpet for the All-State Orchestra for my junior and senior year. So, I mean, it's, All-State. It was, and I liked it because versus All-State band, because in the band, there's about a dozen trumpet players. In All-State Orchestra, it's one player per part, 3 trumpets in the section. And because we can put out so much more volume than a room full of violins, because the trumpets are what brought down the walls of Jericho back in the day, man.
I was going to say, I still
High
to
brass
this day
kicks
think
ass, baby.
the trumpet is probably the loudest analog instrument.
But yeah, and then after high school, I had a marching band scholarship at the University of Utah, a very small one, and opted not to enroll in school, and got ready and went on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, formerly known as the Mormons. And when I got back, I dropped out of school, dropped out of church, and pursued the rock star lifestyle. Man.
Came to the dark side.
Well, I think it was always, and that's a deeper dive than we need to go. Faith crisis.
We're gonna have plenty of. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to call
this
John
isn't a
Dolin
religious
to see
show.
if I can talk about my faith crisis there. But
yeah, this isn't a religion show. But
yeah, and so and jump right back into playing with you. Man.
Yeah, well, you played with Deap Blue,
right?
You were part of Deap Blue before you graduated, if I remember right.
So
it was your senior year.
Way through, all the way through high school. In fact, we had a show at Club Stars in Salt Lake. About
used to be the old Pompadour.
Yeah, and it was something else in between. It's been a million. It's been a million things. It's an old converted church that it was a nightclub. In fact, you saw White Zombie there, didn't you?
Yeah. So I've seen White Zombie there, and then my coworker saw Nirvana when they were just getting started. He was telling me they bought a Nirvana cassette from Dave Grohl when they were nothing. They were a bunch of guys in a van. So yeah, some big bands actually came through that tiny little ass church, and it was all run down, but it was cool. We had fun.
Yeah,
I remember that.
We played a Deap Blue show there. It was maybe 4 weeks before I left on my mission.
And then in between that time, I had kind of started rumbling the idea of Hooray Who.
Right, but remember though at that last Deap Blue show we announced our big name change. We're not going to be Deap Blue anymore. We're going to be Spanky and the Noodle Men.
That's right.
Because we decided at that point, well, you know, at that point really we had kind of decided we really wanted to push and be a ska band.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was a ridiculous name.
And Spanky and the Noodle Men seemed like a great ska band name.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back, we should have just kept it Deap Blue, but yeah, it's all good. But yeah, so then you went on you served your church mission, came back, and then joined back up. It wasn't very long before you started jamming with me again, and I had formed a new group called Hooray Who, and that's when we had Mike Lomax and Taku Tomote from Japan, and I want to say myself. Oh, and
well, yeah, you were
Dave.
I was there.
Yeah, and it was,
you, me, Taku, Matt Wilmore.
That's it. Why did I say Dave? Because he came in after. Okay,
sax players, man.
Yeah. I know
can't
them
tell
damn
them
sax
apart.
players. But yeah, some of them Matt Wilmore, and that's how we ran. And we actually played a couple of shows at Leighton Park. And we didn't have a bass player, so we actually just had a backing track with bass line on it.
Well, it had bass and drums, and then Mike Lomax would play live with us
over the top of them.
Over the top of that,
it sounded pretty cool.
He'd be the only one plugged into the mix with headphones on, so he could hear it, and he kept us all
in check,
in line. And
so that we're talking like time frame wise, it was 94, 95.
That was 1995.
Yeah, 95. And then everybody kind of dispersed. I think
Matt and Taku moved back to Buffalo.
Well, no,
and Wade went with him.
Matt went to Buffalo with Wade, and then Taku moved back home.
Is that when Taku went home? I thought Taku went back to Buffalo with them for a little while.
No, he moved back to Japan, and then Lomax went on his church mission. And so the band just pretty much was done.
Right. So it was Zach and I once again.
Correct. And then
you saw Catfish play, didn't you?
Well, because remember we had recruited Dave Drake right before the end of that. And we because if I remember right, we were trying to recruit, and we got Dave Drake on board. And
yeah, Dave was on board before we merged with Catfish.
Correct, he was, because if I remember it was the three of us needing a band, and I happened to, at that time, a lot of the shows were at Davis County Fairgrounds, and all the local bands were playing, like Nine Spine, and Catfish was one of them. At the time they had a female singer named Stina, and I remember coming to one show, and it was like their farewell show for her because she was moving to California or something. So the very next time that they played, I went to that show. And they had a new kid singing. They had a trumpet player and sax player. And none of them were really that good. I mean, these kids were just, bless their hearts. They were trying, you know. But after that set, I went up to, I think it was Micah. I came up to Micah and I said, "Hey, who's the leader of the band?" He says he pointed at Camden. And I said, well, flagged Camden over, and I said, "Hey, when you get done tearing down your stuff, come see me. I want to show you something." So then they all met, and it was cool because I'm standing outside, and the band that shows up, Catfish that shows up is Camden, Micah
Tordiff, and Nate Tingey.
Yeah, Nate Tingey. So it was the band. It was the new guys weren't there. Like, I don't know if they left or whatever, but they came in. And I brought him out to the car, and I was playing him some Hooray Who stuff. And I'm like, just listen to this and tell me what you think. And they were just astounded. They're like, "Whoa, like what is this?" And I said, "Well, this is my band." And they're like, "Okay, well, what does that have to do with us?" And I said, "Well, I don't really have this band anymore." I said, "I have a singer, which myself, I sing, and I have a trumpet player who sings also, and I have a sax player who also sings backup singing, and we need a band. And you are a band that is in need of a singer, a trumpet player, and a sax player." And I'm like, we should do this, you know? And I said, think about it and let me know. And I think it was Mike that called me back the next day. So yeah, you're in, and bring Matt and Dave with you too. And I later found out that Cam thought I came off as a little pretentious prick, but he couldn't say no.
Confident and cocky.
Yeah, I was just confident, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But
I mean, you were also like, you were also like 19, 20 years old, and like,
yeah, I was 20. Well, yeah, because I don't think I hit 21 when we were in Middle Catfish. So, yeah, and then they were young too. I mean, they were like 16, And wild times with that band, like I remember I was just telling Jenny upstairs earlier about some of our first gigs with Catfish at bars in Ogden. They were like beer bars, like Grey Moose, and there was another one called O-Town. But Catfish played the Grey Moose, which was just a beer bar. They didn't have a full liquor license. They really were supposed to let us in either, but we would sneak in through the fire exit. Like they had a fire catwalk on them. Just outside the stage, there was a door, and that's how we would let people in. So the owners would be like, or the bartender or whatever, he's like, yeah, just when you guys are ready to play, open that door and let those guys in, and then play your set, and then they got to go. They can't hang out.
Right, because everybody but me was underage.
Right. But it was, so our first bar gig, like the only one that was of age was you.
Right. Grey Moose, though, man. The great thing about the Grey Moose is that, they didn't give a shit, man.
No, well, and you could tell, that place was such a shithole. But
that was routinely the place where we had a couple of fans back in the day. I won't use last names, Adam and Jeff. But man, they would show up at all of our shows, and they would be there and just throwing down. And
that was the 2-1.
And it's like neither one of them was 21, but they always managed to be at our bar shows.
Yeah, you always seen their face in the crowd, and you're like, I don't even want to know how you guys got in, but they were there.
I don't want to know, but I'm glad to see you, man.
Yeah. And so then, it was 97, end of 97, Catfish finally broke up, and then 98 we reunited. Hooray Hoo.
Yeah, and we had picked up, at that point, Brian was playing drums for us already.
Yeah, because I think Brian was playing drums for Catfish.
Right, Brian joined us when we were Catfish.
Correct.
And then at the end of Catfish, it was it Manny on bass?
Manny, Sam Cottrell played guitar, I think, for the last 2 shows or something like that. We had to play with 1 or 2 gigs because we had broke up, but yet we still had dates planned with clubs,
we still had debts to pay
that's correct. We had debts. We had money we owed, so it was kind of like we had to play.
As soon as we got right with the Lord and paid our dues and paid everything off, we called it good.
Yep.
Brought Brian along, and then that's when Jeff jumped on board.
Jeff Aaron was there. Michael
Jeff had already agreed to be our bass player though before that last Catfish show, because we knew we were going to keep going. And I think
So when I met Jeff, Cody Deller brought him to one of the last, second to last gig or something like that of Catfish, and we started talking. And Cody had already kind of warmed me up to Jeff Aaron, like, hey, this guy's really good. He's a good friend of mine. And so we got to talking. I said, well, this band's about to break up, but we're going to start a new one again. And so that's where he jumped in. And then I was talking with Nine Spine about Catfish breaking up and this and that. And I remember talking with Chris Olsen, and he's like, I said, I just need a guitarist now. And he's like, well, I know one. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, me. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I can do it. And so that's how that started. So, and then you had Michael Lesko too, which also came into the picture about the exact same time that Jeff Aaron entered the picture.
Yeah, I mean that was the lineup when Hooray Hoo really kind of started back up. Was
and that was a solid lineup. Like that was the culmination of was it 4 years? 4 years of halfway through we kind of lost. Mike had dropped out and Chris had left, and we picked up Wim Becker, and that was the 6-piece that continued till the end.
And I think that lineup, that 6-piece lineup, Hooray Hoo was putting on stage in its last year, that was the tightest Hooray Hoo ever sounded. ever.
Yeah, it was polished. It was
We
we kind of figured things out by then. Like we were on a really, if we had just not like got in each other's way, I think, that band could have gone way further than it did. Obviously it ended, in 2001, but I think honestly, I think we're all frustrated because, there's just burnout. We were playing too much, playing too often, we were just working really hard.
We really were. Well, and really, like in retrospect, looking back, it was kind of spinning our wheels because we were playing the same places a lot.
Right, and we were doing that because we're trying to raise money.
Right,
we were
oversight. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then So anyway, without going into negative territory, it ended.
Right, and then went the whole big. Wow, I moved to Oregon.
Life changing, yeah.
Came back 5 years later with 2 kids.
That's right. And then in 2010, we got to get, was it 11? 2011, maybe.
No, it was 2010. We did a Hooray Hoo reunion show.
Okay, so yeah, we did a Hooray Hoo reunion. Just 2 shows. And then it kind of, that was it. Like, that was the whole point, was to get together, play a couple shows. We did that. And I think at the time, some of the guys were like, hey, we're having a lot of fun. We should do this again. And I wasn't really interested in pursuing it beyond that. So I probably was the one that put the brakes on going any further with that one. And then it was like another couple of years ago that went by. Yeah. So now we're jumping ahead to 2021. And it seemed like every few years there'd be like some chat or a group text or something on Facebook Messenger, like, oh,
or even something cool random, like somebody would comment something on a Facebook post or something like that.
When you guys gonna get back together? And it was always kind of like, yeah, whatever. But for whatever reason, that in October of 2021, that's when things, or maybe it was 2020, things picked up.
Well, it was the end of 2021 because we started rehearsing in January of 22.
Okay. So yeah, so into 20, well, and I had just had my injury like right then. Like I had said, yeah, let's do it. And then I broke my ribs and I was out for 2 months. And so it was like instantly like, cool, let's get together, but we got to pause for a couple months. Yeah. And, so then we gave a pretty good go at that. And,
yeah, I mean, with the Hooray Hoo, coming back, and to me, Hooray Hoo will never be broken up again. Hooray Hoo will always exist, and there's always the chance that we'll throw a show together and we'll do something. I mean, I want to
leave that door open,
Right, absolutely.
I don't see. There's no reason why to just be like, oh, it's official. We're done.
It's done. Yeah, no, we're not. We're just.
Yeah, it's just logistically getting 8 guys together was a nightmare, and which kind of like is the culmination of how Z Frequency got started. And I know where I stand with it and how that unfolded. I wanted to have a group that can be inclusive for multiple members, not just one member, not just like, I wanted to have a band where there's everybody in the band, there's nobody in the band. And I know what that's like for me, but I'm curious, like, how has that been for you as a contributing member? And you've been on every song so far.
Right. Unless there's a song that I'm not needed on, that's my plan, because, this is, to me, is kind of an extension of what you and I have always done.
Right. It almost feels like the old Hooray Hoo.
Right. It is definitely
days when we were writing stuff.
Well, but I think that for me as a player, it's been a lot of fun because all through everything I've ever done, working in bands and writing music, I've been kind of directing the horns, as it were. And I am and as the kind of one of the regular players, I kind of, I'm still obviously very much in that role, but bringing in, specifically on the horn side of things, bringing in these other players, bringing in, Zach Craigle, bringing in Tristan Reeder, working with these other horn players that are strong and, quite frankly, far superior players to me. I love being able to kind of back off and follow their lead as they add their flavor to the mix, so that it's not just somebody that came in and played a horn line that I wrote, because there's, we can do whatever to get a horn line that I wrote. I can double, and we've done it on songs before where I just double up and play,
we'll keep
and there's
doing
2
it.
or 3 trumpet parts,
I think for you, honestly, part of it is it's almost a refresh aspect to have somebody come in to the studio that would take the lead in a sort of role. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not always that expectation is not always falling on your shoulders. Right. And I mean, I write some horn lines too that I present to and stuff.
Absolutely. But
I think you kind of like the idea of not always being the one to orchestrate the melody.
Right. Well, but also, I think that I grow as a player because playing with musicians of that caliber, it inherently is going to make you up your game. But also, learning from it. For example, on our track, Gone to Hell, we let Zach Craigle kind of run all over that tune on the saxophone. And
yeah, you were
it was
him.
fantastic. And he also comes up with harmonies that I really never would have even thought of, that are really, really good and really enhance the vibe of the entire song.
Well, that's not just how I feel about the brass section. I mean, honestly, it's how I feel about the guitars, the drums, every contributing member. Like, there's always a saying that, for me, that the best leaders will always surround themselves with people that are better than they are.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that one of the factors for me in playing in Z frequency is watching these songs evolve and watching them grow. And, you and I have had several conversations to this effect, in that you come up with kind of the bones of the song you have in your head, like knowing the musicians that you know, and, you kind of hear who you would like to have playing these parts, but not just playing those parts, because at every step of the way, each contributor gets to add their own unique flavor to it.
Right. It's their personality.
It's their personality, their style,
sure.
It
takes on a life that you can't imagine, because
exactly,
it didn't exist until they put their part in it.
Right.
So,
and it's not that, and it's completely different than it would be if Zach wrote the guitar line for this song.
Correct.
Or what have you. But it's, it's a lot of fun, because, at every step of the way, as soon as you get another stem back from somebody, okay, we've got the drums now, we've got the guitar now, and listening to that compared to the last version. And then when you go back and you listen to the finished product and you compare it with the original composition that it started from, it is so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely to see the evolution of that.
But seeing it grow as it goes, because we'll have a song that we think pretty much dialed in, and then we get the guitar line in, or we get this back, and it has evolved into something so much more complex and full and robust than it was before. Not that it wasn't great before, but now it's unexpected. It comes from unexpected places.
That's what I love about it. And, do unfold for that. And I can ask you a question leading off from this, but it's kind of like a byproduct of satisfaction for musicians like us that have full-time jobs and families and obligations, and that we can still be a part of something musically, but we're not committed to having to join some band that we're practicing, twice a week, and we got all these shows. It's pretty laid back and open, and I was going to
I think that,
go ahead. I was going to say, how how is it? I know recently, like over the last couple of years, how is getting music back into your life changed you and who you are and your outlook on life in general?
It's been there's not enough great words to express it. You know, honestly, it's a lot of it is coming to terms and being able to process the self-loathing and the guilt that you let yourself not make music for as long as you did when there's a gap, because there was a big gap, you know,
Like
in between
20 years.
Well, that's the thing. It's I mean,
I wrote music before that, but I didn't release anything.
Right, and you know, we did our reunion, and then we had you know, gosh, I want to say
jamming
in about 2012,
2013.
Yeah, but I was gonna say I think it was closer to like 2000. At one point, I sat in with our friend Ryan Kirkpatrick.
Oh yeah. You're talking about Ryan
Kirkpatrick's band, the Artisan Thieves, was opening for Cracker at State Room in Salt Lake, and Johnny Hickman from Cracker has another band called the Hickman Dalton Gang or something like that, and they have a song called Old Border Town, and Ryan was going to cover Old Border Town. And Johnny Hickman agreed to come and sing and play guitar with us. So it was Johnny Hickman fronting a band playing a cover of one of his own songs. And it's got this really gorgeous mariachi trumpet line that goes through it. And Ryan hit me up out of the blue, asked me if I could get a couple of trumpet players together to play a gig. And I called my friend Seth Miner. He was down. I didn't have a horn at the time, so I borrowed one of Seth's horns. I got my chops back into shape. Seth and I rehearsed the lines. And we went and we opened for a platinum recording artist.
That's so cool, because if you think about it, that was like your 15 minutes of flash fame, and then it was like back into hibernation again, you know?
Well, and it was great because, and that reminds me, we should probably figure out a song to bring Seth in to play on Z Frequency, because Seth Miner, the trumpet player, has sat in with us, and played gigs with us from Deap Blue. He sat in Catfish.
Oh, okay,
because we had him
like
just
our guest member.
Yeah, he's just been a guest member, because it's like, hey, you know, we still play ESD in Michael's house, so those haven't changed.
Right. No, that's cool, man. But yeah, so that's Z Frequency. How would you like to see Z Frequency, let's say, a year from now? Where do you see Z Frequency a year from now? And then let's say, where do you see Z Frequency maybe 3-5 years from now?
Well, you know, honestly, I'm a dreamer, man. So I think that a year from now, you know, I'd like to see, you know, at least that, you know, our music is getting out there to a lot more people.
Growth,
you know, just steady growth over time. I don't know that I could put a specific number on it, but as long as there's a steady trend of growth in our engagement, in, you know, people being into us, and that's the thing. You know, we're going to make music. Hopefully people like it, because we're going to share it with you. And, you know, if you like it, that means that more people will listen to it, because you're going to tell your friends about it. You're going to share it, or the algorithm's going to say, hey, these people like it.
Right.
It's not like driving around town sticking up flyers at the record and coffee stores, man, to promote a gig.
No, it's not. I was excited when I started wrapping my head around the idea of a podcast, and especially making it about band crafting and DIY musicians and artists and music venues, maybe music news, industry, like all of the stuff that I've been into over the last, I don't know, like 3 years, ever since Hooray Who got back together. We decided to get back together. It's a whole new animal trying to grow a band. It's a whole lot different. Like you just said, it's not like passing out flyers. So I had to learn. And the idea of the podcast always sounded awesome to me. And so I was thrilled when I hit you up about it, like, hey, would you like to co-host? And I am excited for what's in the future. This is our second episode. My first episode is just saying, hey, this is me, the host. Second episode is co-host Matt. And so from now, Matt and I are going to keep going. And I don't know. I want to see good things come out of this podcast.
Right. And it's just, it's the evolution of how to promote your music, but it's also an opportunity to promote more than the music. It's also about the camaraderie and the
Music scene
of the scene, period, and the people involved with it. And, throughout the series of shows, we're going to be talking to other DIY musicians, bands, active bands.
Doesn't even have to be from Utah,
straight studio bands, sound engineers, people in the industry, and really kind of illustrate, if in part of it, share the things that we've learned in our trying to do this.
Yeah, well, I think it's a journey because we have experience, right? We have a lot of experience, but at the same time, we're kind of a newbie too, because this is a new ball game, like we're
right.
So I think we're in a unique position to be able to have insight of an old construct while trying to figure out and navigate through new waters that is, being in a band is all about. I think we have something kind of special to offer people, and that's why I'm real excited for this podcast. It's, the intentions of the podcast is to bring you news about Z frequency, maybe some share stories like we just did today, and bring on new people, new artists, new revelations, whatever's new happening around the area, or anything that has to related to with music and the art of being in a band. So anything else you want to share, Matt, before we kind of wrap this up?
I think that the end game here is to be able to continue to share what we love with everybody.
Absolutely.
And
it doesn't have to be just music, like through music. Like, I love the idea that we can talk about it instead of just be like, okay, all we do is put songs out. That's one thing I love about this. So,
right.
And
share insights about and about the, the creative process, a little bit of the technical side, and really, kind of show that, if you are a solitary musician at your house and you don't have a band to play with, you want to play with a band, but things like that, there are avenues that you can take to start collaborating with people.
So you could do it yourself, even,
right. And I know that, I'm excited to sit down with our first guest on our next episode, who does exactly that. He is a one-man band.
Yes,
and he's several one-man bands, and they're all very distinct and different. And that's just a great process. It's just a great thing to see, because, and I think that ultimately, if there's any inspiration to be had, if there's anybody that sees one of our episodes and thinks, God, if those guys can do it, I can sure do it.
Right.
Then do it, and have fun with it, and hit us up.
Yeah. So, Matt, where can people find you on socials?
Obviously, on the socials, obviously, I'm.
What do you go by?
I'm 50, so I'm on Facebook under Matt Allen. I'm pretty. I'm very visible there. I'm very active. I have a Disney nerd group called Matter Cameras United. There, today I accepted the role of social media outreach coordinator and visiting fan ambassador for the Shasta Crew tailgate. Basically, week in, week out, I'll be contacting visiting fans coming to University of Utah football games to root against us, to invite them to.
That's
our
right.
tailgate.
You're big into U of U.
Yeah,
that's right. And Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I mean,
It's all good.
If they get to a Super Bowl again, I'll probably care. I mean, yes,
I
I'm
would.
technically a Cowboys fan, but I have not really.
Believe me, I'm a Niners fan, and nothing stings worse than going to a Super Bowl and choking it out.
I can think of something that stings worse.
So, hey, what is your handle again for your Instagram?
So on Insta and Twitter, and I guess it's X, but it's Twitter. I'm at Matty Bumbo.
And that's
MATTYBUMBO.
Share that. Or did
I believe that's my handle on Threads as well.
All right. Does that look right?
That
You
is
probably
correct.
can't send.
And yeah, I mean, that's where I am. I'm also yeah, who knows? If you see the Z Frequency posting, that might be
you'll
me
be
too.
on there too.
You never know.
Yeah, you'll be on.
That's-
Obviously, a part of Z Frequency too. So cool, Matt. Well, we kind of teased a little bit about our next episode. We are going to host our special guest, Jeff Huso, for our next episode, and he has played guitar and bass for some of the releases we've had so far in 2024 with Z Frequency, including Ghost. So he was on the first release. I believe he played bass for Good as It Gets, which just came out. And he's going to be playing guitar for the next release coming out in September.
That was sounding really cool.
I want to say he played bass and guitar, but I can never remember which one that was. Maybe it was. I know Wim Becker does the same thing.
I think that's this one, the September tune. I think it's him on bass too.
I'll have to look into him. Or
Right.
I think it's just guitar. Actually.
Now,
Anyway,
that's how it is with this rotating
maybe it is.
musicians. We have to have a paper in front of us to
I
make
know
sure
I need to
they-
write. I need to write notes on it. So
Right. Who played
well,
what? Where?
Matt, we are at 45 minutes, a little bit over. It was perfect timing.
All right.
So I'm going to say adios to the audience, and we will catch you guys on the next episode, right? You'll be there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
See you next time.
All right.
Thank you for watching the Z Frequency Podcast. You can find out more about us by visiting our website at zhzpodcast.com. Have a splendid day.